G'day, welcome to the Creative Recruiters podcast. My name's Ethan and I'm joined here with Nancy. How are you doing today, Nancy?
Good, thank you. Yeah, really well. Loving the sun that's coming out in Melbourne today.
Oh no, it's actually been great. I feel like I'm a bit worried because I feel like we're still in winter, but it might hopefully stay sunny for a while now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I hope so too.
So tell me a bit about yourself. Nancy, what are you doing now? How have you gotten to where you are now as well?
Yeah, sure. So I've actually just recently started a new job. I've taken a new role at Next, which is an innovation consultancy. The parent group, so funded by the parent group, Reese Group, which you may have heard from like Reese Plumbing or Reese Pools, a couple of other brands. So it's like a construction company, but we're part of a innovation consultancy within that.
Mm-hmm. And what have you been doing there?
Yeah. So I guess what our model is that we consult into the different brands of Reese. So Reese has multiple brands. And then we're kind of set up like a consultancy where we've got a pool of resources. And so I'm one of the principal designers there, helping to grow the business, potentially look at external consultancy, and growing our business, so that we would be consulting to Reese or potentially externally or whatever else that we like to do and we would like to do in the future. So yeah.
Oh, very cool. And what does a day-to-day look like as a principal designer?
So it's running projects for different parts of Reese. You know, it could be like, let's create a new offering, let's grow into a new market, potentially look at growing overseas or bringing out a new service. It could be capability uplift for people within Reese, within our team, growing our team, looking at how we can build pipeline with new work. Similar to a lot of sort of external consultancy type work, but this is like an in-house consultancy.
Of course. And before Next, you were at Deloitte, is that correct?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. So I spent quite a few years there, working in sort of strategy and design. So that's kind of where that was my lot of sort of foundations into external consulting, I'd say. And prior to that, I spent many years at Telstra doing sort of an in-house strategy, again, a similar consulting type role. So I guess that's always been sort of my bread and butter and what's led me to today, I guess. So yeah.
Of course. And have you liked in-house or external a bit more, or what are the differences?
I think they're both so incredible to have hand in hand, really, and to have both under your belt. I feel like my initial roots were actually in accounting, funnily enough. Accounting and finance. When I was in high school, I was told, have a job in accounting and you'll never be out of a job. And then when I started working, they started automating everything. So that was just not true. But it meant that I kind of always had this sort of commercial background and understanding, the business and the business conversations and bringing in new projects and saying, no, actually, this is profitable for us, rather than just having sort of a purist design perspective. And I think so having that in-house commercial background is really helpful, and then bringing that and coupling that with sort of consulting and external consulting, you understand different industries, different products, different services. You're always learning something different, so that's an incredible learning. I think you're expert. You just expedite learning in a really short period of time because you're like an expert every few weeks. You become an expert every few weeks in something completely random and different. But I think having that in-house thing is that you understand then what the client wants as well. So just, I would say it's both together is sort of the golden thing. Yeah.
Of course, you want to kind of get expertise in as many places as you can and bring them all together so you can kind of help out your client or whoever you're working for. No, awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And what are the biggest challenges you face, and how do you overcome them as a principal designer at Next?
I would say it's not necessarily Next. I would say it's probably all sort of consulting type roles where you're thinking about bringing in perhaps some form of change or innovation something new to the table, that's kind of your role. And you're dealing with people that are just constantly trying to, pay the bills, as to say, like they're dealing with the current and the now, and often quite deep in that. So bringing something new can kind of sometimes cause disruption. It can change the way things happen, and people tend to freak out over anything different. I mean, I know I do, and someone just tells me all of a sudden I'm doing something different. And also, I think when you're in an innovation consultancy, you're like often thinking about things quite into the future, and like, which you kind of need to, because otherwise your business might not be around if you're not up to date with trends and things like that. But yeah, that can cause panic sometimes, and the way to overcome it, I think, well, I don't know, I don't even know if there's the perfect answer for that. I think I'm still figuring it out, but I think it's bringing people along the journey, showing them that actually doing this will help you, and how will it help you, getting them to provide the input and the expertise. To be honest, like in consulting, you don't know the business sometimes, and you don't know the product service. They know it best. So giving them that voice is probably the key thing, because then they're invested in the idea, because they've contributed to it, as opposed to it's your idea and then they're like, who are you to tell me what to do, right? But if it's their idea, then they're like, oh, I want this to do well because I put my name to it. So
no, of course, definitely. Change is scary. It's that transition, I guess, of going from one place to another. And I can imagine, having them on your side, or them understanding exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it, would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
And I know, as a principal designer, human-centered design is a big part of your work, and it's a growing methodology gaining a lot of traction in recent years. What trends do you see emerging across human-centered design?
Good question.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't even know if I call myself an expert. It's always changing, I think. So, but maybe it's not a trend, but I think what's really important is, and I guess to my background, it's making sure you bring the business requirements along with the customer requirements. Because I think if you're just framing it in a very business problem way, and this is what we're going to solve for the business, the customer doesn't care, may not even impact them, they don't want it, etc. So the idea often fails. Similarly, if you're just looking at it from a customer perspective and you want it to be an amazing experience, but it's not sustainable for the business, it's not profitable for the business, or it brings some benefit to the business, it's probably going to fail as well, or it's not going to be long term. I think that's probably why MySpace didn't stick around, or you need to have both working together and both helping each other out to solve the problem. You need to have both conversations at the same time. So you can't just be purist design, and you can't just be a purist business strategy. So it's bringing both together. I would say that sometimes that maybe people need to bring that more forefront of the conversation. So
well, of course, it sounds like this kind of seesaw. You obviously think about the customer, but the business, and it's just trying to balance it out.
Yeah, I mean, we at the end of the day, I'm in a business, and I'm in a for-profit business, and most of my consulting projects have been in for-profit, and we run a business. It's very different if you're in a government service or a not-for-profit, but you've got to bring the both together, I think, and you win both that way, and it's a win-win situation rather than one over the other.
Of course. So I think everyone loves win-wins, so that's good. So obviously there's a lot of change here, there's a lot of innovation, and obviously a lot of thinking to do. Where do you do your best thinking? Is it in the shower, walking the dog?
I think I talk out a lot to myself. So I probably look like an idiot, but I do it when I'm driving. And I prep for most of my meetings, presentations, interviews. I do that when I'm driving around, and I just pretend like I'm on a call or something, and who cares if I look a bit funny. So I do that, or I do it in the shower, because I guess they're your times when you're just by yourself. And I practice, and I'm a talker, so it's easy for me to verbalize something. Even before I'm writing it out, I kind of verbalize it and say, just so that I hear it and I can see whether it sounds natural, whether it sounds forced, or You know, often when you communicate something, it's going to be verbally, even if there's something written, you're going to present it or something. So I just want to hear it before I kind of put pen to paper. So yeah.
Of course, a very like verbal learner or verbal understander, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
So that's kind of where I do my thinking.
no, and I guess nowadays you could just kind of put AirPods in or anything like that, and then people just think you're on a call, you know?
Exactly. I may have taken it to an extreme, and sometimes I'm on walks, and then I just look like a big idiot, like just talking to myself. And then, you know, accidentally the phone rings or whatever, and you're like, oh shit, now people know my secret. Anyway, nobody really cares. So it's all
Yeah. Exactly. If it works, you know?
Yeah.
And what is your creative process? I guess, is it kind of just that talking to yourself and walking through the motions, or?
My creative process, yeah, I think I'm not sure. I think I'm generally a very I work better with people. So very rarely would I be working completely on my own on a project. So we're very team focused. If I am by myself, you know, I'll still be talking to the customer and bringing, you know, the customer or the business or whatever. So it's always with other people, and it's just getting the right people in the room. Brainstorming ideas, maybe role playing, like, you know, oh, how would this experience work? Let's just try and act it out. Let's, you know, whatever it is. So talking to people, brainstorming together, ideating together, bouncing ideas off each other is kind of my creative process. In a work setting, that's probably what I do. And then I do I'm a creative person outside of work as well. And I think that just helps me relax and, you know, makes life more enjoyable in a way, so that when you go back to work, you're rejuvenated and you're not like, it's not just all about work. So I don't know, makes your work better when you're having a good time outside of work as well, I think. So
oh, definitely. What are some of the things you like to do outside of work then?
I'm probably terrible. I am terrible at it, but I love photography. I love, you know, I've recently taken up painting, and I'm so proud of it because I've never painted before, but my partner's like, looks like a child did it. And my walls are full of like paintings from a child, but who cares? The passion is true and alive, and I love it. So it's very calming and therapeutic, just sitting there and not really thinking much. So.
No, of course, that's great. I mean, as long as you like it, you know, you're passionate about it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
And what is one common myth about your profession that you would want to debunk?
I think people have no idea what a designer means. I personally hate going to like a barbecue on a weekend and saying I'm a designer, because people just assume like some visual arts person, or I do cool graphics. And to be honest, I probably work in Excel and PowerPoint way more than I do anything creative with my job per se. It's creative of the mind rather than anything. So like, yeah, I find it very hard to explain what I do sometimes, because someone did say to me, say you're like a business doctor.
I like that.
Yeah. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I told my mom that I've taken on this new role as a principal designer at Next, and she goes, well, she said two things, because I said it's by race, and she goes, oh, are you having a midlife crisis, like joining a plumbing company? And B, she said, but also like, I didn't know you drew, so you know, like assuming as a designer that it was something to do with, yeah. So it's one that I still haven't figured out, and sometimes I find it easier just to make up professions and say I'm an accountant or I'm a brain surgeon. Uber rides home and like late nights can be quite fun.
No, of course. I've run into a similar problem actually, because I'm studying service design at the moment, and no one knows what it is. I'll be like,
exactly.
what do you do? Yeah. And I feel like, you know, especially on a night out, I can kind of just tell people whatever. It's like, oh, service design is this, you know, I fly to Africa and then I go to Germany and I'm chatting to people.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Exactly. You get me.
And then what's one thing that you wish you knew when you began your career, or anything you would say to people trying to start out in design?
I guess it's not specific to design, but I, when I was a grad many years ago, someone told me, and I was stressing out about my next rotations. It was a Telstra, and it was a 3 rotation program of 6 months each. And I just wanted to make sure I picked the right rotations because this would impact my future and all of that stuff. And they said, a job is not a marriage. Think of it as like a short-term fling or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or something. You know, you can change.
Yeah.
You're not stuck with it for life. And to be honest, that's been so true of my career. I mean, I started in accounting, finance, I went to procurement, I've done, you know, bits of HR, I've done so much. And all of that's just led me to become a better overall rounded person, I think, rather than, I would just say, a designer. So yeah, I would say that you can always change. If you don't like what you're doing, there's something else out there that's better for you. You just have to go find it. And I guess the second one that someone's told me is just, you drive your own career, and nobody really does that for you. So like, I've always been, I guess, very proactive and, you know, trying different things and wanting to get different things out of my career. And I've kind of not waited for the opportunities to come to me, because I often don't. And so every time I wanted to try something different, I've like actively sought out that. And yeah, I would give that advice to anyone starting out. Drive it yourself, you know. Yeah, that would be.
Did you find it difficult then, I guess, because you have changed a lot, or were you able to present, I guess, the skills you had as an account manager into a designer, or was it kind of like a slower transition throughout the entire time?
No, not at all. I don't think it was a slower transition at all, because I think what that shows is like an ability to adapt, an ability to constantly learn. And I guess also, when you're in consulting, you're constantly doing different things anyway. So even though I've tried so many different things, the underlying core skills are probably quite similar. So the application is in different ways, in different industries, different areas of the business, but the skills that I would say the foundations have been similar in that sense, because the core of what I like doing at work is always kind of the same. It's more that I just like variety. You know, we're not our parents where we do the same job for 30 years. It's just not that generation anymore. And I think most people probably go down that path, you know, like where they want to be constantly learning something different and exposing themselves to different. So I think that's just the nature of it, to be honest, rather than, it doesn't slow you down. If anything, it shows that you're able to constantly learn new things and try new things, grow as an individual. So yeah, it's been a benefit to me, more than anything, I'd say. Yeah.
No, that's great. I definitely think as well, I guess we live in a world where there's so much information. You can really do anything online, you can try anything, so it's very easy, I guess, to keep learning and upskilling.
Yeah, exactly. Completely.
And then what are the key skills that you developed when working as a consultant? Because you said you've been able to transfer them from job to job to job. What are they?
I would say probably your number one is being able to, it's all your like soft skills really, more than anything. It's being able to connect with people. Consulting is all about the business of people, really, and building relationships. So I would say number one thing more than any technical skill, because it's like having that right mindset and attitude to want to work with people, to want to, you know, build that longer term relationship. Like with consulting, work just comes because you've done another piece with them, or you worked with somebody else they know and they've referred you. So it's all about the business of people, I think, and being able to collaborate better, being able to, you know, work in teams, all of that stuff, and have fun doing it. Like nobody wants to work with someone who's super smart, but just awful. Like I think in consulting, they call it the airport test, like because you travel so much, and if you get stuck on the airport for 8 hours because your flight's delayed, do you want to hang out with them at the airport? That's what they look at when they're like hiring people. More than how well can you do business modeling. Like it's because that stuff that can be taught, but whether you want to hang out with them for 8 hours or not can't really change in that sense. So yeah, I would say it's those skills. It's just being able to work with people, communicate is probably like so important, because we're doing that, you know, all day, every day. And as I say that, I'm probably rambling right now and my poor communication skills. But yeah, I think that would, and then there's technical skills too, of course. It's like being able to communicate ideas, you know, verbally, but also either in a report or presentations or things like that, being able to have some commercial acumen, being able to yeah, lots of technical skills, I think, because that always changes and you grow over time. And being able to problem solve, be a strategic thinker, because you're often given problems that you have no idea about and you know nothing about the business, and you need to be able to solve the problem. So it's like, how do you do that without any knowledge, and how do you quickly learn what you need to and bring the right people together to help you solve that problem? Because to be honest, you're probably not an expert in that space. So lots of technical skills, but for number one, for sure, it would be like working with people. And that skill, you know, is fundamental in any of those jobs I talked about that I had. And so I think that stayed with me throughout. Yeah.
Of course. And then, because obviously, you know, you're very good at creating rapport. But how, I guess, would people like learn that themselves? Is it just kind of going out there and chatting to lots of different people, or what did you find best?
Yeah. I don't even know how I learned it. I guess it's just like, now I think of it as comes to me, you know, without thinking about it. But I'm sure I learned it just by like working with people and being open to lots of constructive feedback, observing how others do it. I've learned so much from people that are, you know, senior to me, junior to me, peers, and the best way to learn is on the job. You know, I still remember all the little Excel formulas and things I learned in my very first year of working, you know, my old manager teaching me VLOOKUPs and whatever it was, to, yeah, creating slides. And I remember my first slide that I made was awful, like just because you have no idea what you're doing, and you learn from feedback, and you learn from being surrounded by people who have a lot more experience than you do, and you just have to be open to that. And yeah, I'd say there's no course that I've done, I guess, like I have done lots of training programs and courses, but most of them, I would say, you know, it's fun for 2 days because you get to be out of work for 2 days, and it's like free training and probably food. But most of my learnings almost always has happened on the job.
Oh, of course. Well, no, thank you very much for today. It's been a great insight. I really like this idea of changing and always trying to learn and adapting. It's been really good.
Thank you. No, likewise. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, great speaking to you.
Yeah, great speaking to you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Ethan. Bye.